today's episode, we'll be going over the settings page in Rocket League. If you've been keeping up with the series, welcome back. Now that we've gone over what the fundamentals are, you're probably itching to hop into training and start getting good. But one thing I want to cover before we start getting into mechanics are the in-game settings. Now, this video is somewhat long, it's kind of dull, but it's very necessary for newer players. Some of you experienced players may even learn a thing or two. I will do my best to be quick and concise, but if you already know what you're looking for, you can use the chapters below to find that specific topic. Now, you can reach your settings page from the main menu, but for this tutorial, let's launch FreePlay so we can see exactly what we're adjusting. Hitting start or escape will bring up your pause menu, then go ahead and scroll down to settings. And just for you guys, I have reset all of my settings to default, so I'll be extra sure to go over every setting. Now real quick before we get too deep into this, a few things to note. You can move around the settings page by using your bumpers, RB and LB for Xbox, R1, L1 for PlayStation, or use your mouse for KBM. Any setting you scroll or mouse over will have a small description below that explains what exactly that setting is. Most are pretty self-explanatory, but we'll go over them regardless. And remember, I myself am doing this from a PC account. I own Rocket League through Steam, and so for my console and Epic Games players, if there are any settings or keybinds that you have that I don't, I really am sorry for the confusion. Okay, back to the gameplay tab. We're starting with an easy one, unlimited boost in free play. This turns unlimited boost on or off while you're in free play. For my Steam and Epic folks, this will also affect your boost in workshop maps. Split screen layout is the screen orientation when playing split screen. You can set it to horizontal or vertical. Cross-platform play. Having this on lets you play with other players on other platforms. The platforms are divided between Steam, Epic, Xbox, PlayStation, and Switch. So if your buddy is playing on a Steam account and you're on an Epic account, even if you're both on a PC, you'll need to enable this to play together. Client send rate, server send rate, and bandwidth limit. For most players, I would recommend keeping all three of these on the default setting. However, if you're hardwired into your router via Ethernet and don't run into connection problems, setting this to high may be your preferred setting. If you're running a wireless connection and you do have connection problems quite frequently, setting this to low may be your best bet. Next up is input buffer. I personally do not have a lot of knowledge on this setting, but Rocket Science has a wonderful video explaining how all this works. You can find that video in the top right corner of your screen or find the link in the description below. But from my limited knowledge, if you have a stable connection, CSTS may work best for you. If not, STS is what you're looking for. Default, or what was known as Legacy I believe, isn't recommended by most, but many players say to test all three out for yourself to find the best setting for your connection. Up next is Show Competitive Division. With this setting on, you'll be shown what division within your rank you are at the end of each ranked match. In case you didn't know, each rank, from Bronze to Grand Champ, has 3 sub-ranks, 1, 2, or 3 respectively, and each sub-rank has 4 divisions within it. SSL, or Supersonic Legend, is the highest rank you can achieve in any playlist and has no sub-ranks or divisions. Having Show Extra Mode ranks enabled shows you what rank you are in the Extra Modes playlist on the Extra Modes selection menu. Game Stat Display Level shows you a little graphic in-game for specific actions. Main Stats Only will show you the following: assists, epic saves, goals, saves, shots, and demolitions. All stats will show you the above and more, and no stats turns this setting off. Tournament Schedule region shows you which tournaments you'll see on the tournament menu. If you're a night owl like myself, you may miss out on tournaments, and may find more tournament opportunities by changing to a different region. Just remember, if you do switch this, you will most likely not be playing on your preferred servers, and you can only change this setting once every 24 hours. Now on to everyone's favorite tab, camera settings. The first setting we have is camera preset. From default to legacy, these are essentially Rocket League's default settings packages. And from Jesse on down are settings used by that pro. This is where some of you may want to stop and look to see if your favorite pro has their respective settings listed. And if they don't, you can hop on liquipedia.net, link below, to search for their settings. Otherwise, keep watching if you want to know what each of these settings does. Camera shake is whenever you bump into something on the field, like the wall, another player, or the ball. This setting will shake your camera slightly. Now, I don't like blanket statements, but if you run this game with camera shake on, you're a weirdo. Turn this off. There are no benefits to having it on. Field of view, or FOV. This is the observable area that your camera can see. A higher setting equals more area. I would not recommend going below 105. Most people max this out, me included. Distance is how far the camera sits from your car on a horizontal axis. Most pros sit between 250 and 270. Height is how high above your car the camera sits. Most pros sit between 90 and 110. Angle is the angle your camera points towards your car. The lower the angle, the more the camera points towards the ground. Most pros sit around -5. Stiffness dictates how much the camera moves behind your car when reaching different speeds. With a stiffness of 0, you can see that when my car reaches supersonic speed, the camera is a further distance from my car versus when I begin to slow down. This effect is most noticeable when power sliding. Notice how my car is thrown to the side of my screen? Most pros sit near around 0.5 for this setting. Swivel speed is how quickly your free cam moves. You can use this by moving your right joystick. A higher setting is a faster whip of the camera. Most pros sit between 2.5 and 5. Finally, transition speed is how quickly your camera moves between car and ball cam. Again, the higher the setting, the faster the movement, and maxing this results in an instantaneous switch between the two. Most pros sit between 1 and 1.6. Invert swivel inverts the x-axis of your free cam. Down is up is down. Now before we go on, here are my thoughts regarding camera settings. I give you all what most pros sit at for each setting. Is that what you should use? Well, it's a bit more complicated than that. Whatever it is that you want to focus on more in your Rocket League career will dictate what camera settings you use. The settings I listed for most pros are used by those pros because those settings work best for them in a competitive environment. But what if you're here to learn how to freestyle? Then you may benefit more from having the camera lower and pulled up real close to your car so you can see exactly how your car responds to different touches on the ball. Maybe you're a weirdo like me and actually enjoy the 1v1 playlist. Hiking the height setting and lowering your angle may be what you're looking for, since it gives you a better view around the ball to watch your opponent. There are no right or wrong answers. What works best for you is what works best for you. Most likely you will change these settings hundreds of times throughout your RL career, but I do recommend giving yourself a few days between these changes at the very least. If you change them too often, you're probably setting yourself up for failure. Give your brain time to adjust before you adjust. Next up, we have controls, another sought after subject within the RL community. I'll split this section up into two parts, bindings and sensitivities. Let's look at bindings first. I will not go too heavy into this portion, but instead leave you with my opinion on controller bindings. Sorry, keyboard and mouse players, you may want to go find a pro's YouTube, like Evample, link in the description, who play on KBM to find out what works best for you. However, my opinion on this matter may still apply. The way I see it is, there are 5 bindings you should have bound in such a way that allows you to press all 5 at the same time. These bindings are Accelerate, Boost, Jump, Power Slide, and 1 or more of the 3 air roll bindings. Anything less than this, and you will have problems performing many of the most basic mechanics. Where should you bind these 5 functions? That's entirely up to you. Just like the camera settings, it really does not matter. Take my own bindings for example. I have my boost bound to X, since my thumb naturally rests across A and X. This means my thumb moves very little when needing to press either or both buttons. A couple things to note. Most players will bind the basic air roll function and power slide to the same button. Many choose one of the 2 bumpers. This is because wave dashing, an important mechanic we will cover in the near future, generally requires you to use both air roll and power slide to perform. Reducing the amount of controller inputs you need to perform this mechanic just means smoother gameplay. Another consideration is having a way to use all 3 of the air roll functions, but 2 is the minimum. I would highly recommend, at the very least, having the basic air roll function bound and then one of the 2 dedicated air rolls, air roll right or left. Having these bound as soon as possible in your Rocket League career will save you many headaches in the future. Even if you don't use them now, eventually you will, and breaking muscle memory habits is very difficult to do. Now on to sensitivities. We're going to skip steering and aerial sensitivities for now and get our dead zones figured out first. Controller dead zone is how far from the center of your joystick you need to move it in order for Rocket League to register an input. The higher the setting, the further you need to move your joystick to elicit a response. And as you can see from this diagram, the higher the setting, the less area we have to work with when a response is received. If you're paying close attention, you'll notice that a higher dead zone leaves even less room when attempting a diagonal input. Therefore, the idea is we want to have our controller dead zone as low as possible, which gives us more area to make small adjustments when controlling our car. The best way to go about doing this is first figuring out if you have stick drift. To do this, lower your controller dead zone all the way to 0, then exit the menu, and drive forward without touching your joystick. As you can see, I myself have a little stick drift to the right. That's no good. So what I'll do is hop back into the menu, raise my controller's dead zone by 1 unit, and then test it again. And I'll continue doing this until my drift is no longer an issue. You could go 1 unit higher than this if you wish to play it safe, but congratulations, you now have your controller dead zone setting. Next is dodge dead zone. Before I explain what this setting is, you should probably know what a dodge is. No, it's not avoiding a demo. It's what you've probably been calling flips. When you jump in Rocket League, you have a little longer than a second to perform a dodge by holding any direction on your joystick and then jumping again. So back to dodge dead zone. This setting dictates how far from the center of your joystick you have to push in order for Rocket League to register that direction when performing a dodge. So you're already probably thinking we want to follow controller dead zone and lower this as much as possible. But in practice, it doesn't quite work that way. Just like controller dead zone, the higher the setting, the further you have to push your joystick to elicit a response. For newer players, I recommend having this setting very high, anywhere between 0.8 and 1, as this will prevent you from accidentally dodging, also known as
rip flips.
As you play more and more, you can lower this setting by small amounts over the course of several days until you find a setting that works best for you, and most pros don't sit below 0.4 for reference. And real quick before we move on, the numbers for both dead zones represent percentage, so a dead zone setting of 0.5 will mean you move your joystick 50% of the way before a response is received. I say this for this reason: if you do have stick drift, and you use the method I just mentioned to find out, and then set your controller dead zone at, say, 0.15 or 15%, but you have your dodge dead zone set at 0.1 or 10%, then your stick drift will cause you to dodge even if you're only meaning to do a double jump. In other words, always keep your dodge dead zone at a higher value than your controller dead zone. So now that we have all that figured out, let's jump back to steering and aerial sensitivity. Steering and aerial sensitivity is not how fast your steering is, it's how far from the center of your joystick you must push in order to reach the maximum amount of speed that your car can turn. The diagram on screen shows you what I mean by this. So you're probably thinking, oh, let's max that out so I can always turn super fast. But control will always outrank speed in Rocket League. Remember the adage, slow is smooth, smooth is fast. So what you're looking for is a healthy balance between control and speed. You want to be able to make minor adjustments for many mechanics, and maxing these settings out means less control over those minor adjustments. So most pros sit between 1 and 2, with the midline somewhere around 1.4. But this is all personal preference, so I do recommend feeling around for what works best for you. But like with Dodge Dead Zone, don't change this too often and only by small amounts until you find your preferred settings. No matter what setting you choose, you want both of your aerial and car sensitivity to be the same value. Otherwise, your brain will most likely struggle. With the next two settings, you can turn on vibration and adjust the intensity of said vibration. Ball Cam Remote allows you to toggle ball cam on or off, or press and hold to follow the ball. I do not recommend using hold, but there are pros known to use this, so what do I know? I will not touch on the next three settings, as these really only apply to keyboard and mouse players. Again, sorry if you are, but they are pretty self-explanatory. I have the utmost faith in y'all to figure it out. The next tab to cover is interface. Interface scale adjusts how large the menus look on your screen. Display scale changes where the interface begins in simple terms. I'd leave this at 100% unless some things are hanging off your screen. Nameplate scale is how large player names appear in game. I, along with many others, raise this value to help prevent players and their nameplates from disappearing behind the ball. Nameplate mode changes how nameplates are displayed. Default shows a white border around the nameplate and displays the nameplate no matter the distance a player is from your car. Nearby Only also has a white border around the nameplate but switches to a small arrow when a player moves far enough away from your car, and Simplified is the same as Nearby Only but without the white border. I personally leave this on default. Match notifications controls what game messages pop up in the middle of your screen during a match. Connection quality indicators controls if a small icon appears in the top right of your screen if you're having connection issues. Colorblind mode makes all cars a high contrast blue or orange. Force default team colors removes custom team colors when in private or tournament matches. Notifications during gameplay controls whether or not you get social notifications while in a match. Team color boost meter controls if your boost meter changes to your team's custom colors in a private or a tournament match. Turn off metric for Imperial units, leave it on for metric. Ball cam indicator shows you a small text field in the bottom left of your screen to let you know if you are on ball cam or not. Uncheck this to hide that text. Ball arrow is a small arrow that rotates around your car to show you where the ball is. I'd recommend unchecking this feature. Performance graphs can show you performance and network summaries in the top right of your screen. Convert platform friends will automatically add your Steam and Epic friends to your Rocket League friends list. And allow player-to-player trading lets you decide if you want to be able to receive trade requests. On to video. I am not going to go in depth on these settings. We'll be here all day if I do. I will pause the video here for my own video settings, but you do you. I have mine set to get the highest performance I can. I personally care very little for the beauty of this game unless I'm grabbing a clip for a video. If that's not something you care too much about, then using the presets to your own liking is the quickest way to set up your video settings. Two things to cover, however. For resolution, I recommend sticking with your monitor or TV's native resolution, but choosing a smaller resolution that matches the native aspect ratio will improve performance. And keep transparent goalpost checked no matter what, so you don't lose vision of the field when you're trying to recover in your opponent's net. The last two tabs are audio and chat. All of this is very much self-explanatory, so there's only a few things I want to cover over these two. The rest should be quite easy to understand and set up to your liking. Under the chat tab, the View Change Quick Chat button is where you set up your quick chats, which you can access in game with your D-pad. I recommend strongly to set up the first section at the very least. This is your team chat. These 4 quick chats can only be seen by your teammates and can be accessed by pressing up on your D-pad. They are great for letting your teammates know what your intentions are, usually just for kickoff, but the Need Boost Quick Chat is the most influential quick chat I've ever used. This should be on everyone's quick chat bar. The second item to look for is under voice chat settings. You can turn this on or off under voice chat, and then you can choose if you want open mic, push to talk, or toggle for input. And the last thing I want to cover is quick chat and match chat. If toxicity gets under your skin, I would just turn all of these off now. However, if you do, you will also not be able to chat in game. So do with that as you will. Well guys, if you stayed this long, I really do appreciate it. If this video helped you out in any way, please leave a like. And if you have any more questions or think I didn't cover something as well as I should have, leave a comment below. And if you want more Rocket League tutorials, make sure you subscribe to catch all my future videos. That's all I got for you guys.